Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy my new stories every day. I never expected to be that guy. You know, the guy who snoops through his wife's phone, piecing together the betrayal he always feared. But here I am. My name is Jake, 38 years old, and for the past year, my life has been unraveling in ways I never thought possible. It all started innocently enough. Caroline and I had been together for over a decade, married for 12 years, with 2 kids and a life that most people would envy. From the outside looking in, we were the picture of happiness, a stable family, beautiful home, comfortable jobs. We had a routine, a rhythm that worked for us, or so I thought. But beneath that facade, things were crumbling, and I was too blind to see it. For the first 10 years of our marriage, everything felt right. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but I never doubted her loyalty, her love for me. We met in college, fell in love fast, and built a life together. I trusted her completely, and I thought she trusted me too. But in the last year, things started to shift. It began with small things that seemed insignificant at the time. Caroline was spending more time on her phone, even during family dinners, her eyes glued to the screen as our kids chattered away. At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone's on their phone these days, right? But then, the late nights at work started happening more frequently. "Oh, I've got a big deadline coming up," she'd say, or "We've got a new client, and they're really demanding." I wanted to believe her. I did believe her, because why wouldn't I? But something inside me started to nag, like an itch I couldn't quite scratch. She was distant, emotionally cold, especially when we were alone. We went from sharing our thoughts and dreams at night to her barely speaking when we were in bed together. She'd roll over, phone in hand, claiming exhaustion, and I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering what had changed. But I ignored it. I told myself it was stress. Everyone gets stressed, especially with 2 kids, demanding jobs, and a house to manage. We were just in a rut, right? That's what I convinced myself. Then came the moment that shook my world. It was late, past midnight. I was finishing up a project for work. Caroline had already gone to bed, her phone still charging on the nightstand. I walked into the bedroom quietly, careful not to wake her, but I couldn't help noticing the phone screen lighting up. Normally, I wouldn't care, but something about that moment felt off. Maybe it was the way she had been acting lately, the coldness between us, the constant checking of her phone. I don't know what possessed me, but I picked it up. Her lock screen flashed a message from someone I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. I'll make it worth your while." My heart stopped. I stared at the message, reading it again and again, hoping I had misunderstood, that there was some innocent explanation. But there wasn't. My hands shook as I unlocked the phone. Her password was still the same, the kids' birth dates, something she had always trusted me with. And there it was, months of messages from someone named Josh. Conversations I wasn't part of, plans I wasn't aware of, inside jokes I didn't understand. He was taking her out, buying her gifts, and telling her things I hadn't heard from her in years. My stomach turned. I felt sick, like the air had been punched out of my lungs. This can't be happening, I told myself. Not Caroline, not us. But there it was in black and white, proof of my wife's affair staring back at me from the screen. I could have confronted her right then. I wanted to shake her awake, demand answers, scream, cry, do something. But I didn't. Instead, I stood there, frozen, my mind racing, trying to make sense of the betrayal. How long had this been going on? How many times had she lied to my face, telling me she was working late while she was with him? I spent the next few hours sitting in the dark living room, her phone beside me, scrolling through every message, every email, trying to piece it all together. It wasn't just one night. It wasn't just a mistake. This had been going on for months. Caroline wasn't the woman I thought she was. The life we had built together was a lie, and I had been blind to it. By the time the sun came up, I knew I couldn't confront her yet. I wasn't ready. I needed more than just texts and emails. I needed a plan. I needed to think this through. So, I slipped her phone back on the nightstand and went about my day like nothing had happened. I smiled at her, kissed her on the cheek, got the kids ready for school, all while my mind was spiraling. Over the next few days, I became obsessed. I watched her closely, noting every detail, every lie, every excuse she gave me. I started following her, nothing too obvious, just checking her location through her phone when she said she was at work, when she said she was meeting a friend for lunch. And every time, her location would show the same place, a hotel downtown, the same one Josh was staying at. My heart ached with every new discovery. This wasn't the woman I had married. This wasn't the life I had imagined for us, for our kids. But the more I learned, the more determined I became. This wasn't going to end with me as the pathetic husband begging her to stay. No, I was going to make sure she felt every ounce of the betrayal she had inflicted on me. I was going to get my revenge. It started slowly. I changed the passwords to our joint accounts, making sure she couldn't touch the money without my approval. I began documenting everything, screenshots, emails, even phone logs. I needed a paper trail, something undeniable when it came time to confront her. I knew that when the moment came, I would have all the power. She wouldn't see it coming. I kept my composure. I played the part of the clueless, loving husband, all while preparing to dismantle her world the same way she had dismantled mine. And then, one Friday night, after she left for another one of her work meetings, I decided it was time to act. That night, I wasn't going to sit at home waiting for her to come back with another lie. No, I was going to be the one who ended it all, but on my terms. That Friday night, when Caroline left for her work meeting, I knew it was finally time. I had spent weeks preparing for this moment, laying out every step in my mind like a carefully designed blueprint. There was no turning back now. It was time to expose everything. Caroline kissed me on the cheek as she left, her perfume lingering in the air like a sickening reminder of her double life. "Don't wait up for me," she said casually, as if she weren't about to spend the night in a hotel with another man. I forced a smile, my heart pounding with adrenaline as I watched her walk out the door, completely oblivious to what was coming. I didn't have much time. As soon as I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I grabbed my phone and keys, heading straight for the garage. My heart was racing, but my mind was sharp, focused. I had tracked her location earlier, so I already knew where she was going, the same hotel she had been visiting for months. Tonight, though, I wasn't just going to sit at home, waiting for her to return with another lie. Tonight, I was going to be there, waiting for her in the shadows. As I drove, the streetlights flickered in the distance, casting eerie shadows on the empty streets. My mind raced with everything I had uncovered in the past few weeks. The affair hadn't just been physical, it had been emotional too. She was in deep with this guy, Josh, texts filled with inside jokes, messages about their future together. I felt a wave of nausea just thinking about it. My phone buzzed with a notification. It was from Caroline. I glanced at it quickly, just checked in, busy night ahead. See you tomorrow. Her lies were like poison, seeping into every corner of my mind. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, fighting the urge to throw my phone out the window. No, I needed to stay calm. I needed to stick to the plan. When I arrived at the hotel, I parked in the farthest corner of the lot, away from the security cameras. The place was upscale, the kind of place where people came to hide their affairs behind fancy dinners and expensive rooms. I had called earlier that day to reserve a room just down the hall from hers, using a fake name, of course. Everything had to be perfect. This wasn't just about confronting her. It was about making sure she knew that I had seen everything, that she couldn't hide anymore. I checked in quickly, avoiding eye contact with the receptionist, and made my way up to the floor where Caroline and Josh were. My hands were sweaty, my stomach knotted with anticipation, but I kept moving. I had come too far to back out now. As I approached her room, I could hear faint laughter coming from inside. My jaw clenched. That laughter, the sound of her enjoying her night while I had spent weeks in a nightmare. I wanted to kick the door down, storm in, and let them both have it. But I knew that wasn't the way. Instead, I walked quietly past their room and entered mine. Once inside, I paced back and forth, my heart thudding in my chest. This was it. Tonight was the night everything came crashing down. I pulled out my phone, opened the text messages between us, and typed, "I know what you're doing. Enjoy your night while it lasts." I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the send button. Once I sent it, there was no going back. But that's what I wanted, no more pretending, no more lies. I hit send. I sat on the edge of the bed, my leg bouncing anxiously as I waited for her reply. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. It was her. "What are you talking about?" she responded, the mask of innocence already slipping into place. She was good at this, I'd give her that. But not good enough. I didn't respond. I wanted her to sweat a little. I imagined her in that room with Josh, glancing nervously at her phone, wondering if her world was about to implode. I wanted her to feel the same fear, the same uncertainty, that I had felt for weeks. I stood up, pacing the room again, trying to calm myself down. This wasn't just about catching her in the act, this was about making sure she understood the depth of her betrayal. My mind raced through the next steps, what I would say, how I would handle it, the look on her face when she realized I had known all along. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. Another message from her, "Jake, what's going on? Why are you being like this? Still playing innocent?" I smirked, shaking my head. She really thought she could talk her way out of this. I grabbed the envelope I had prepared earlier from my bag and slid it into my jacket pocket. Inside were the divorce papers, signed and ready. I wasn't going to stand there and beg her to stay, like some pathetic husband who couldn't accept the truth. No, this was about reclaiming my life, on my terms. I left the room, making my way quietly down the hall toward hers. My heart was racing again, but this time it wasn't fear, it was adrenaline. I had waited too long for this moment, and now it was finally here. As I approached the door, I could hear them inside, laughing softly. The anger inside me bubbled up, but I forced it down. I needed to stay in control. This had to go exactly as planned. I knocked on the door. For a moment, there was silence, and then I heard footsteps approaching. The door opened, and there she was, Caroline, standing in front of me in a robe, her eyes wide with shock. Behind her, I could see Josh sitting on the edge of the bed, looking just as confused. "Jake, what are you doing here?" she stammered, her voice shaky. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I just thought I'd stop by to say goodbye." Her face paled. What do you mean, goodbye?" I stepped inside, ignoring her as she tried to block my way. "Oh, I think you know exactly what I mean." I tossed the envelope onto the bed where Josh sat, the divorce papers sliding out just enough for them both to see. Josh stood up, finally catching on to what was happening. "Look, man, I didn't know," he started, but I cut him off with a cold glare. "You knew," I said, my voice low and controlled. "You knew exactly what you were doing. Don't pretend like you didn't." Caroline's eyes filled with panic as she looked between me and the envelope. "Jake, please, let's talk about this." I held up a hand to stop her. "There's nothing to talk about, Caroline. It's over. You've been lying to me for months, and now it's time for you to face the consequences." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't care. She had already broken me, shattered everything we had built together. Now, it was her turn to feel the weight of what she had done. I turned to Josh, who was standing awkwardly by the bed, clearly unsure of what to do. "Oh, and by the way," I said, smiling again, "your wife is on her way. She should be here in about 15 minutes. His face went pale, and for a moment, I saw real fear in his eyes. "What, my wife?" he stammered. "Yeah," I said, turning back to Caroline. "Looks like you both get to face the music tonight." And with that, I walked out, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their lies. I walked out of the hotel room, my heart pounding in my chest, but it wasn't fear this time, it was a strange sense of victory. The air felt different. Crisp, clear, as if I had just stepped out of a suffocating fog and into something I could breathe in again. Caroline had always made me believe I was the lucky one, that I had something too precious to lose, but now I realized it was all a lie. As I made my way down the hallway toward the elevator, I couldn't help but imagine what was happening behind the door of that room. Caroline, probably in tears, scrambling to explain her way out of it, trying to figure out what she could say to make it all go away. Josh, meanwhile, would be pacing, knowing his wife was on her way to ruin whatever fantasy he had been living in. But none of that was my problem anymore. I had done what I needed to do. I had cut ties, severed the strings that had bound me to Caroline's lies, and I was free. I reached the elevator and pressed the button, my hands still shaking a little from the adrenaline. As I stood there, waiting for the doors to open, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting another desperate message from Caroline, but it wasn't her. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a second, then opened the message. "Jake, it's Alicia. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Josh's wife. I just wanted to let you know I'm here. Thank you for telling me the truth." My stomach clenched, but not in the same way it had when I first found out about the affair. This was different, this was confirmation that the second part of my plan was in motion. Alicia was here, and that meant the real confrontation was about to begin. I didn't respond. There was no need. My role in this was over. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside, hitting the button for the lobby. As the doors closed, I leaned back against the wall, letting out a long breath. It felt good, better than I had expected. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times in my head, but nothing compared to the reality of walking away from that mess, knowing I had taken control. The ride down felt like a blur, my mind racing with thoughts of what was coming next. Not for them, for me. I had spent so much time focused on Caroline's betrayal, planning how I would confront her, how I would make her pay for what she had done, that I hadn't really thought about what came after. What does life look like after something like this? The elevator dinged, and I stepped out into the lobby. The night was quiet, the hotel staff going about their business, unaware of the storm brewing upstairs. I made my way through the glass doors and into the cool night air. I stood in the parking lot for a moment, taking in the stillness. It was strange, this was the first time in weeks that I hadn't been consumed by rage or suspicion. For the first time, I felt calm. I wasn't just reacting anymore, I was choosing. And that felt powerful. I headed to my car, but before I could reach it, I saw a figure approaching from across the parking lot. Alicia. She was walking quickly, her face set in a mix of determination and fear. She spotted me, her eyes locking onto mine, and for a moment, we both just stood there, staring at each other. "Jake?" she asked, her voice shaky. I nodded. "Alicia." She reached me, her breath a little ragged, and for a second, it looked like she might break down. But she didn't. She held it together. She started, then stopped, looking down at the ground. "I don't even know what to say. I feel like such an idiot. I should have known." I shook my head. "Don't do that to yourself. They're the ones who did this." She looked back up at me, her eyes filled with a sadness I understood all too well. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Not long," I admitted. "Maybe a month or two." But it feels like forever. She nodded, wiping at her eyes. I've been suspicious for a while, but I never had proof. And Josh. He's good at lying. Her voice cracked a little at that last part, and I could see the weight of it all settling on her. I felt a strange kinship with Alicia. We were both victims of the same betrayal, and yet, standing here in this dark parking lot, it felt like we were reclaiming something, our dignity, our strength, maybe even our future. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, I said, unsure of what else to say. She laughed bitterly. Honestly? I'd rather find out this way than keep living in the dark. I understood that feeling all too well. Do you need anything? I asked. Do you want me to stay until? No, she interrupted, shaking her head. No, I've got this. I just wanted to thank you. For telling me. For not letting me stay blind to it. I nodded, unsure of what else to say. This wasn't a victory celebration, there was no satisfaction in seeing someone else's life shattered, even if it was justified. But there was a strange sense of closure in it, like we were both walking away from something toxic, something that had been poisoning us for too long. Alicia gave me a weak smile, then turned and headed toward the hotel. I watched her for a moment, then got into my car and sat there for a few minutes, the silence around me feeling heavier than before. What now? I thought. I had taken care of the immediate problem, Caroline was out of my life, the divorce papers were served, and I had made sure her affair was exposed. But what comes after revenge? What do you do when the fire inside you burns out? I pulled out my phone and stared at it, debating whether to call someone, maybe a friend, maybe just drive around for a bit. But then, almost instinctively, I opened my email and began typing a message to my lawyer. It's done. The papers have been served. Let's move forward with the next steps as soon as possible. I hit send and leaned back in my seat, staring up at the night sky. The weight of everything hit me all at once, the months of suspicion, the heartbreak, the anger, the planning, and now, the emptiness. I had been so focused on destroying the life Caroline and I had built together that I hadn't even thought about what I wanted to build next. As I sat there, I realized that this was just the beginning. Revenge had been sweet, yes, but it wasn't enough. Now came the hard part, starting over. Rebuilding my life from the ground up, without her in it. I had my kids, my job, my friends. I had a foundation. But what did I want my life to look like now that she wasn't a part of it? It was a question I didn't have the answer to yet. But I knew one thing for sure, whatever came next, it was going to be on my terms. No more lies. No more betrayal. Just me, moving forward. I started the car, pulled out of the parking lot, and drove into the night, feeling the weight of the past finally starting to lift. I didn't know where I was going, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally headed in the right direction. Driving through the quiet streets, I couldn't shake the strange mix of relief and emptiness that came with my decision to end my marriage. The night sky was clear, and the streetlights flickered as I passed under them. My mind was racing, but for once, it wasn't filled with thoughts of Caroline and her lies. I felt lighter, like a massive burden had been lifted off my shoulders. The divorce papers were served, the affair was exposed, and now, I was free. I found myself heading toward the beach, a place I used to love when life was simpler. Caroline and I had come here often when we were younger, before the kids, before the stress of careers, before everything fell apart. I hadn't been back in years, but something about tonight made it feel like the right place to go. The parking lot near the beach was almost empty, just a few cars scattered here and there. I pulled into a spot and turned off the engine. The sound of the waves crashing in the distance was soothing, almost hypnotic. I sat there for a moment, listening, feeling the cool night air seeping into the car. I hadn't planned to come here, but now that I didn't want to leave. I grabbed my jacket and stepped out, the sound of the waves growing louder as I walked toward the sand. The moon was high, casting a silver glow over the ocean. I took off my shoes and let the cool sand sink between my toes as I walked along the shore, thinking about what the future would hold. I had no plan, no real direction, but for the first time in a long time, that didn't scare me. As I stood there, watching the waves, my phone buzzed in my pocket. For a second, I thought about ignoring it, but something made me pull it out. It was a message from Alicia. "We need to talk. Can you meet me?" I stared at the message, feeling a knot form in my stomach. Why would Alicia want to talk to me now? She had already confronted Josh, and I assumed she would be dealing with the fallout of their relationship. I debated whether or not to respond, but before I could decide, another message came through. "Please, Jake. It's important." Something about the urgency in her words made me hesitate. I didn't want to get involved in more drama tonight, but curiosity got the best of me. I typed out a quick response. "Where?" Her reply was immediate. "Same hotel. Room 317. Please come." A cold shiver ran down my spine. The hotel. The place where everything had blown up just hours ago. What could she possibly want to talk about now? Still, a part of me was intrigued. I hadn't really talked to Alicia beyond that brief moment in the parking lot, but I had felt a strange connection with her, like we were both trapped in the same nightmare, trying to find a way out. I turned and headed back to my car, the peacefulness of the beach suddenly feeling far away. The drive back to the hotel was tense. My mind raced with possibilities. Had something happened with Josh? Was there more to the story than I realized? The fact that Alicia was still there, asking me to meet her, filled me with a sense of foreboding. I pulled into the hotel parking lot and made my way to room 317. My pulse quickened as I knocked on the door. For a moment, there was no sound, and I wondered if I had made a mistake coming here. But then, the door creaked open, and Alicia stood there, her face pale, eyes wide with something that wasn't quite fear, but close enough to make me uneasy. "Jake," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "I'm sorry for dragging you back here, but..." I didn't know who else to turn to. I stepped into the room, noticing right away that it was pristine, untouched. Unlike the chaos I had left behind in Caroline and Josh's room, this one felt eerily calm. Too calm. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice low. "Why are you still here?" Alicia looked at me, her hands trembling slightly as she closed the door behind me. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you earlier, but I didn't know how." I narrowed my eyes, trying to read the expression on her face. She looked nervous, guilty even. "What is it?" I asked, suddenly on edge. She took a deep breath, her eyes locking onto mine. "This whole thing. Josh and Caroline, it wasn't just about an affair." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Alicia walked over to the small table in the corner of the room and picked up a folder, holding it out to me. "Here. Read this." I took the folder, my hands trembling slightly as I opened it. Inside were pages of documents, emails, text messages, financial statements. As I flipped through them, a sickening realization hit me. "This can't be real," I muttered, my voice barely a whisper. "It is," Alicia said, her voice shaky. "They weren't just having an affair, Jake. They were planning something bigger. They were funneling money out of your accounts. They've been doing it for months." I felt like the ground had just dropped out from under me. "What are you talking about? How could this happen?" Alicia stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. "Caroline and Josh have been working together for a while. Josh convinced Caroline to siphon money from your joint accounts, from your savings, your investments. They were going to take everything and leave." The room spun around me. I stared at the papers in my hands, the financial transactions, the emails between Caroline and Josh, plotting and planning. My mind reeled, trying to process it all. The affair, the lies, it had all been a cover for something much worse. I looked up at Alicia, my throat dry. How did you know? She hesitated, her eyes darting to the floor. Josh. He left his computer open one night. I saw everything. I confronted him, but he convinced me that it was just a phase, that it wouldn't go anywhere. I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't. So I started gathering evidence. And when you reached out to me, I realized I couldn't keep it quiet anymore. I couldn't breathe. Caroline hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, she had betrayed me financially, planning to steal everything I had worked for, everything I had built. I'm so sorry, Alicia whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I should have told you sooner. I dropped the folder onto the table, my mind racing. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about survival. Caroline had been planning to leave me with nothing, and I hadn't even seen it coming. What do we do now? I asked, my voice hollow. Alicia wiped at her eyes, her expression hardening. We take them down. Together. I stared at her, the weight of everything crashing down on me. But then, slowly, I nodded. Alicia was right. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Caroline and Josh had tried to destroy us, but now, we had the upper hand. The battle wasn't over. But this time, I wasn't fighting alone.